Welcome back, everybody, to TSI English Language Arts and Reading Crash Course. This is day 1, part 2. Francisco's with us, and we are just moving on to the next passages and the next questions on this TSI A2 practice test. So these are some shorter passages here. Not all of them are going to be as long as the last one we just read. So let's tackle these and let's tackle some of the questions. Go ahead and start by reading loud and proud. Read that first passage here on the next section. Go ahead, Francisco.
All right. Passage 1. As computer programs and online services continue to advance, paperless offices are growing in popularity. Going paperless is certainly a more environmentally friendly option than using reams of paper. A paperless office may also save on various overhead expenses. However, it may be expensive in the long run to go paperless, depending on the size and needs of your company.
Okay, I'm going to stop you real quick, Francisco. So far, this is a little bit easier, I think, to read than the last passage. Just the vocab is a little bit more straightforward.
Yeah.
Were there any words in here that we need to discuss before we continue reading?
Using ream. Well, when it says reams of paper, I'm guessing that means pages, right?
Yeah, just lots of paper, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
A ream would be like a large stack of paper. Yeah. But yeah, and you don't need to know that exactly here. And I want to clarify this as well for anybody watching the recording, that on the TSI, you're not using a dictionary. So kind of the strategy that we're discussing about looking up every word you don't know, that's a general strategy to boost your reading comprehension between now and whenever you're taking the test. I just want to make that really, really clear for everybody. So as you're taking the test, and maybe we'll practice that a little bit more here in part 2 of like just trying to figure out what a word means in context, and I think we will. You can kind of, you don't need to know exactly what ream means here. You can figure it out. It just means lots of paper here, right? Mm-hmm. What about overhead expenses? Do you know what overhead expenses are?
Let's see.
It says a paperless office may also save on various overhead expenses.
Various overhead expenses. I'm guessing that means like a lot of money, right?
Yeah, money. Basically, your overhead expenses would be like, if you have an office building, you got to pay rent on your office building. That's an overhead expense. Or like, paying for pens and paper, right? Or printer, printing cartridges and stuff like that. That's an overhead expense. Just an expense a business has. That's it. Yeah. But I think most of it's pretty straightforward vocabulary here. All right, let's keep reading from another option.
Another option might be using less paper instead of attempting a completely paperless office. This way, your company can enjoy some advantages of a paperless system while avoiding some of the disadvantages.
Awesome. Okay. Any questions about that, or are we good?
No.
All right. Let's go to passage 2. Go ahead and read that, please.
Okay. Many companies today are choosing not to go paperless because of the high cost of doing so. Despite the green advantages, going paperless requires some companies to maintain up-to-date hardware and software, and upgrades often come at a steep cost.
Yeah, do you know what steep means there?
Like a big cost?
A big cost, yeah, exactly. A big cost, a high cost, yeah. Okay. And do you know what they mean when they say green advantages? What does that mean?
Like saving money, I'm guessing?
That's fun. That's interesting. And it's reasonable to think that. Here, green, I think in this context, and in many contexts these days too, just kind of means like environmentally friendly, right? Because the environment's all like, green outside, trees and are green, that sort of thing. Does that make sense? Have you heard that before? Like green energy technology or something like that? They're just talking about like environmentally friendly.
Okay. Yeah. Businesses may need to hire an IT person to monitor their systems, train new users, and perform regular backups of information. Ensuring online security is also vital, and the more people a company has using a system, the closer the system must be monitored for privacy issues and viruses.
I'm going to stop you real quick. That part of the sentence where it says ensuring online security is also vital. What does vital mean there? I bet you can figure it out.
It's also like risky,
yeah. Vital doesn't mean risky.
But what is it?
Have you ever heard like vital signs? Like check his vital signs.
Yeah. I knew that one. I know it means like. I think that means like to see if he's like still alive.
Yeah. That's it exactly, right? Like vital means it's in relation to life. So if something is vital, like it's vital information, or just if something is vital, it means like it's necessary for life. It's essential. It's required. It's kind of what it means.
Okay.
Yeah. So in this context, like really important. Ensuring online security is also really important. That's what it means. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And then take that last sentence there.
It takes a lot of time and money to go paperless, and for many small businesses, it's just not worth the expense.
Interesting, right? Now notice we've got kind of two different perspectives here in these two different passages, and you'll see that pretty commonly, right? One in the first passage, the author takes one position, in the second passage, another author takes another position. Okay. So sometimes, even if you don't know what's going on in the second passage, if you understand the first passage, you can assume the guy in the second passage probably disagrees with the guy in the first passage because they want to show you some contrast between the two passages. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to give you two guys with the same perspective, right? It's generally, you can pretty much assume it's going to be two different perspectives. They may not be opposites, but they're going to be two different perspectives. All right, so let's read that question number 5, please.
All right. The author of passage 1 would most likely criticize the author of passage 2 for...
Okay, now let's stop and think about this question. Let me make it really, really clear. So, we're answering the question sort of from the perspective of the author of passage 1. The author of passage 1 would most likely criticize or critique the author of passage 2 for something. Okay? Let's go back and kind of review what's the main point of the author of passage 1. What's his main point?
That paperless is a good thing, right?
Yeah, you should go paperless, right? Or at least, I think at the end he says, or at least partially paperless.
Well, really, mostly the advantages are like going paperless.
Absolutely. Yeah, here's a bunch of advantages of going paperless. Absolutely, right? That's going to help when we think about his perspective on the second guy's passage, right? Mm-hmm. All right, what about the second passage? What's his main point there?
The disadvantages of going paperless.
Exactly, the disadvantages. Which are what? By the way, what are the disadvantages?
Let's see. Business may need to hire an IT person to monitor systems. Ensuring online security is more vital. The closer system must be monitored for privacy. Like they need to hire more security because of it.
Yeah, you got to hire an IT person to monitor the system. You probably need an online security expert, right? If all of your stuff is online, right? Hackers could access it and all that stuff, right? And there's a bunch of money in it, but there's extra expenses and all that stuff, right? So there's disadvantages too, right? Absolutely. Okay. So the author of passage 1 would most likely criticize the author of passage 2 for something. Let's read the answer choices. Go ahead and read answer choice A.
Overemphasizing the significance of a company's size.
Okay, do you think the author of passage 1 would likely criticize the author of passage 2 for overemphasizing the significance of a company's size? Do you see any evidence for that?
No.
I don't think so. Do you know what overemphasizing means?
Like overthinking?
Not overthinking, but like to emphasize something means like, what does it mean to emphasize something? I really want to emphasize this point.
Like to, claim it? Or?
It's kind of like just like make a big deal about it. To underline it or highlight it, to point it out in a big way, in an important way. That's to emphasize.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I agree with you that the author of passage 1 is not criticizing the author of passage 2 for overemphasizing the significance of a company's size. I just don't see any evidence for that. That's just not a thing that they would disagree on, right? I don't see any evidence for it. Go ahead and read answer choice B.
Overlooking the environmental benefits of going paperless.
Do you think the author of passage 1 would most likely criticize the author of passage 2 for overlooking the environmental benefits of going paperless?
No.
Why not?
Well, overlooking the benefits means the positives, right? Yeah, so in passage 2, the author, he's looking at the negatives. So if anything, he would agree with the points with that and not criticize with them for it.
So, you say the author of passage 1 would agree. Oh, yeah. But the question is here, does the author of passage 1 think the author of passage 2 is overlooking the benefits, like ignoring the environmental benefits of going paperless? Do you understand understand that statement a little bit more now?
Okay, I gotcha. Well, no, he's not. I wouldn't say he's ignoring it because, like, he does make some points that, like, there are some advantages to it.
Go back to that line. I'm glad we discussed it in the second sentence of passage 2, right? Where he says, despite the green advantages of going paperless, right? So he recognizes the environmental benefits, right? Do you see that?
Yeah.
So you can't say that the author of passage 2 is overlooking the environmental benefits. He doesn't. I just don't think he thinks it's worth the cost. But he's not overlooking the environmental benefits. When I first read this answer choice, I was really, really tempted by it. But I think you can find evidence against answer choice B, because the author of passage 2 isn't overlooking the environmental benefits. He points it out. Does that make some sense, Francisco?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. So we can't, as tempting as it is, we can't go with answer choice B. Let me see if I can get rid of A here as well. No. Oops. There we go. A and B are gone. Go ahead and read answer choice C for us, please.
Failing to consider an alternative to eliminating all paper.
Do you think the author of passage 1 would criticize the author of passage 2 for failing to consider an alternative to eliminating all paper? We can go back to the passages if you need to. Would the author of passage 1 criticize the author of passage 2 for failing to consider an alternative to eliminating all paper? Here's another question. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I would say probably the way that I'm reading it.
Here's a question for you. Does the author of passage 2 consider an alternative to eliminating all paper?
No.
No, he doesn't. He's like, if you're going paperless, there's all these problems, right? But the author of passage 1 is like, well, but you can lessen the amount of paper you use, right? The author of passage 1 addresses that, right? Right? Where he says another option might be using less paper instead of attempting a completely paperless office. But the author of passage 2 doesn't really consider that. So I think that's possible. The author of passage 1 would criticize the author of passage 2 for failing to consider an alternative to eliminating all paper. I think that's a possibility. So let's keep that. Let's keep C. But I want to read answer choice D.
Okay. Underestimating the consequences of technological issues.
Ooh. Do you know what consequences means here?
Like, basically, it's like it's gonna bite you in the butt.
Possibly, right? The technology might. The consequence here just means the effects.
Okay.
Right? So, do you think the author of passage 1 would criticize the author of passage 2 for underestimating the consequences or the effects of technological issues?
I wouldn't say so because, like, I feel like that's something that he would agree on.
Yeah. I mean, does the author of passage 2 discuss the consequences of technological issues?
Passage 1. Oh, no.
Well, does the author of passage 2 discuss it?
Oh, passage 2, yeah.
Yeah, he's talking about all the IT people you need to hire and the online security and stuff. So he doesn't underestimate. In fact, he emphasizes the technological issues. So I think we can find evidence to eliminate D. Does that make some sense?
Yes.
Okay. So we go with answer choice C. That's the best, and it's right. Whew, that's tough. But you see how you kind of have to think about the perspective of the author of passage 1 and what he would think about passage 2. And you got to kind of make that jump.
Right.
That's what you got to do. And then also here, I think it's always easier to get rid of the bad answer choices. I think it's easier to do that than it is to confirm the right one. I mean, when we read C, it's like, okay, maybe that. I don't see evidence against it. I can't eliminate it. But we could definitely find evidence to eliminate D. We could definitely find evidence to eliminate B. And there's just no evidence for A.
Yeah.
Okay. So I really strongly recommend thinking in terms of elimination, going back to look for evidence to support or eliminate an answer choice. And it's generally easier to find evidence to get rid of the bad ones. Any questions about that?
Nope.
Okay. Let's rock and roll. Let's do the next two passages. Same thing here.
All right. So, passage 1. Are people who work from home slackers? Recent research suggests just the opposite. One study examined the habits and concerns of both in-office and off-site employees over the course of 2 years. The researchers learned that those who worked at home were 13% more productive and worked longer hours on average than those who worked in the office. Interestingly, the telecommuters took far less time off than their in-office counterparts.
I'm going to stop you real quick. Do you know what a telecommuter is?
I'm guessing it's like someone who works from the office.
That would be if you work in an office, you're probably commuting to the office. You're making a commute, which means you're traveling. But if you're a telecommuter, what is that tele prefix at the beginning of that word?
You work with the phone?
Over the phone. Yeah. And I think we use that term if you're like doing work like on Skype or on like Zoom. If that's where you meet, for your work, you're a telecommuter. Right? So telecommuters, that's a reference to somebody who's working from home.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can also figure that out from the context of the sentence. I mean, look at the sentence here. It says, interestingly, the telecommuters took far less time off than their in-office counterparts. Counterparts like the other guys. So if their counterparts are the in-office guys, right, the opposite of that, the counterpart of that, would be the guys that are working from home. So even if you don't know what that word means, you can kind of figure it out from the context of the sentence. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay. All right, let's keep reading.
The researchers also found that the rate of at-home workers who quit their jobs was far lower than it was for their employees who worked in the office. Without stressful commutes, worries about having to take sick days, and various distractions in the office, the telecommuters reported being much happier with their positions.
Interesting. Let's try this real quick. I want to stop for just a moment. I want to consider, what's the main point of the author of passage 1? Let's consider the main point.
I think really what it's trying to say is like people who work from home have it really harder than from working at work.
What's your evidence for that? That people that work from home have it harder. What's your evidence for that?
Well, it says like the telecommuters took far less time in their office and their office counterparts.
Why does that make you say that they have it harder?
Because it says took far less time off than because like.
So maybe they worked more. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, does that mean that they wanted to take time off and couldn't, or they just chose not to? I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, right? Like there may be days where you party too much the night before, and maybe you'd call in sick if you had to show up in person. But it's telecommuters like, I'll just roll out of bed and they can sleep in, right? And just like pop in on their pajamas. Maybe they put a shirt on, but they're in their slippers and they're comfy. They've got some tea, right? It's not necessarily a bad thing that they take less time off. Do you see that?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, I also thought about this. It says the researchers also found that the rate of at-home workers who quit their jobs was far lower.
Yeah, right? Isn't that's it, right? That's not evidence that they have got it harder. That's evidence they've got it better. Do you see that? Right? They're not quitting their jobs as much if they're working at home. That might be evidence that they're happier in their jobs. Or they're quitting less at the very least. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that last sentence, right? Without stressful commutes, worries about having to take sick days, and various distractions in the office, the telecommuters reported being much happier with their positions, right? So clearly, I don't think he's saying they've got it harder. They're happier. And more productive, right? Earlier in the paragraph, right? It says the researchers learned that those who worked at home were 13% more productive. And even worked longer hours. Now you might be like, I don't want to work longer hours. I don't know. I mean, these guys did, for whatever reasons. And they're not quitting. Not as much as the other guys who are working in the office. But we know they're happier. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you read a passage and you're like, what was that all about? Well, step back, go back, reread it. This is an untimed test. That's the beauty of this thing, man. It's untimed. Go back and reread it. Make sure that you understand the main point of the author. Because if you don't understand the main point of passage 1, don't go to passage 2. You're not going to be able to compare the main points of the passages if you don't understand the first passage. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. I'm glad we went back to that. Let's read passage 2. We'll do the same thing.
Right. After working from home for the past year, I was relieved to get back into the office. The office environment has provided me with a much-needed set schedule. I work for 8 hours and then I go home to relax and work-free environment. When I worked at home, my office was always accessible, and my work hours bled into my leisure time, so that I was never fully free of my job.
I'm going to stop you real quick. That's an interesting sentence. He says, when I worked at home, my office was always accessible. What does that mean? My office was always accessible.
Like he always had access to it?
Exactly, right? Always had access to it. And then he says, and my work hours bled into my leisure time. That's interesting. What is leisure time? Do you know what that means?
Like free time?
Free time, exactly, right? So what does he mean when he says, and my work hours bled into my leisure time? What does that mean, that phrasing? It's interesting.
I think it means like he had so much work hours that he wouldn't be able to have time to himself.
Yeah, he didn't have much leisure time, right? Like because he was always, if he's working from home, he's always at the office in a sense, right? And so like times that he might otherwise be relaxing at home, he was working instead. They mixed together. His work hours bled into his leisure time. They mixed together. So that I was never fully free of my job. Does that make some sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you work from home, you might always be at your job. So, which is interesting. Let's keep reading.
Even when spending time with my family after dinner, I'd be checking emails and thinking about projects. Today, my former home office is a family room, and when I spend time relaxing there, work never crossed my mind. Well, almost never.
Okay, good. All right, what's the main point of the author of passage 2?
Okay. This, basically the point I thought it was for passage 1. Yeah. It kind of looks like he had it harder.
Yeah.
On himself, yeah.
Yeah. He didn't like it.
Because I see it, yeah, it says, I was relieved to get back. After working from home for the past year, I was relieved to get back home to the office.
Yes. Yeah, if you're reading the 2 passages and you don't see a contrast, you didn't understand the passages. You need to go back.
Right.
But the contrast is clear here. First guy's very much in supportive of working from home. The second guy's like, that wasn't my experience. It sucked.
Mm-hmm.
Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. All right. Let's go ahead and read question number 6, please.
Okay. The authors of both passages probably would characterize telecommuters as being generally...
Okay, and you see why you got to know what a telecommuter is.
Yeah.
Right. And what is a telecommuter again? What is it?
Someone who works with the phone.
Someone who works from the phone, probably at home, right?
Yeah.
They're telecommuting to the office. They are working in their home. All right. So the authors of both passages, so here we got to find out what they agree on, not what they disagree on. The authors of both passages would probably characterize or describe telecommuters as being generally, go ahead and read answer choice A.
Unproductive.
Okay. Let's stop and consider that. Do you think the authors of both passages would characterize telecommuters as being generally unproductive?
No.
No, I don't think so. Why not?
Because they've been telling in both of their stories how really hardworking they've been.
Yeah. In both of them. Let's go to passage 1. Let's find that evidence. Where's the author of passage 1 say that telecommuters are productive?
Let's see.
I think I see it.
I think it's the last sentence, isn't it? That's...
Go and read the last sentence.
Without stressful commutes, worries about having to take sick days in various directions in the office, telecommuters reported being much happier with their position.
Does that mean they're more productive?
No, okay.
Not necessarily. Now it says they don't have the same distractions in the office, so maybe you could stretch it a little bit there, but I think we've got better evidence. Look back at passage 1, scan through it. I think we've got better evidence that the author of passage 1 thinks that telecommuters are more productive, or at least very productive.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So the researchers learned that those who worked at home were 13% more productive
Bingo.
and worked longer hours on average
Bingo.
than those who worked in the office.
Bingo. Yeah. Right? So he's not going to say that. The author of passage 1 isn't going to say that telecommuters are unproductive. Right? He says the opposite. He says they're more productive.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Now, technically, we don't even have to read the passage 2 to look for the evidence, because both of them have to agree. Is that clear? That we're looking for the authors of both passages characterizing telecommuters in some way. So if just one of the authors doesn't characterize them as being unproductive, we know we can get rid of it. But the author of passage 2 also wouldn't describe telecommuters as unproductive. Why not?
Let's see. Well, because like I know like he's a telecommuter himself, and like I know he was basically the whole story. He's been saying like how hard he's been working.
Yeah, he's like, I was working all the time when I was working from home.
Yeah,
the whole thing is evidence, right? Talking about how much he worked. So he's definitely wouldn't characterize telecommuters as being unproductive.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's get ready to answer choice A. We got evidence against it. Plenty of evidence against it. Go and read answer choice B.
Stressed.
Okay, so would the authors of both passages probably characterize telecommuters as being generally stressed?
Well, the author from passage 2, maybe, but...
For sure, passage 2. For sure.
But for passage 1...
What about passage 1? Do we find evidence there that he would characterize telecommuters as being generally stressed?
No.
I don't think so. Maybe the opposite. Right?
Mm-hmm.
That last sentence again. Without stressful commutes, worries about having to take sick days, or various distractions, right? They're happier.
Yeah.
So, the author of passage 1 might say they would be more stressed, but not the author. Sorry, the author of passage 2 might say they'd be more stressed, but not the author of passage 1. So we can get rid of it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Excellent. Go ahead and read answer choice C.
Hardworking.
All right. Do you think the authors of both passages would characterize telecommuters as being generally hardworking? Maybe. Do we see some evidence that they're hardworking in passage 1?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, the sentence we read earlier, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, about them being 13% more productive.
13% more productive.
What about passage 2? That they're hardworking.
Yeah, again, the guy pretty much said in the whole story that he was being the most productive when working at home.
Yeah, I was working all the freaking time.
Yeah.
Right? Which is why he wanted to go back to the office, so when he got home, he wouldn't have to do any work. I get it. I totally get it. That work-life balance can be tough. But yeah, I think both would characterize him as being hardworking. So let's keep answer choice C. What about answer choice D?
The author for
Go ahead and read answer choice D from you.
Satisfied.
Yeah, okay. So let's frame this in the context of the question. Do you think the authors of both passages would characterize telecommuters as being generally satisfied?
I think the author for passage 1 would, but for passage 2, I don't think so.
But the guy was clearly not satisfied with working from home, right? Satisfied just being like happy with the condition, happy with the state he was in. So definitely not for the second passage, so we can get rid of that and confirm it is indeed answer choice C. How confident do we feel about the answer being answer choice C, hardworking? How confident do you feel about that?
Yeah, 100%.
100%. 100%. Now you got to understand both passages, right? Mm-hmm. So again, if you read the first one and you don't understand, you don't have the main point, go back and reread it. Make sure you understand it. Take your time. You can reread it 3 times if you need to. Or if you read both of them and you don't see the contrast, you missed something. You got to go back and understand them. But if you understand them, it's pretty clear here. You just got to go back and find the evidence to get rid of the bad ones and confirm the right one. Any questions?
No.
How much opinion is there in these questions and answers? How much opinion?
Um, how much opinion?
Yeah, like how much do they ask for your opinion? What you think?
Uh, really, like most of them are really.
Well, I mean, like what you think about telecommuting or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Like you're asking.
Like, are they asking for your opinion on telecommuting? Are they asking
No,
for your opinion on going paperless?
no.
No. No, it's all about what the author or authors are saying. That's it. So make sure to not to project your beliefs or your opinions on this test, right? If you had a really bad experience telecommuting or like you're doing virtual school, you might want to pick answer choice B. You're like, well, I was really stressed when I did it, so B, right? But they're not asking
Yeah.
what you think or how you feel. It's what are the authors saying? That's the question. You see the difference between those?
Yes.
Yeah. You may think a company that doesn't go paperless is ignoring the environmental benefits of going paperless. You might think that. That's fine. That might even be true. I don't know. But the question is, what does the author of passage 1 think about the author of passage 2? Or think about what he's saying. It's all about what's being written. You don't have to inject your own opinion or your own beliefs. Don't.
Yeah.
Don't. It's a trap. If you try to,
Yeah.
if they try to get you to do that, or if you're tempted to do that. All right, let's go to the next page. We got some more passages now. Here they give us some single passages, so it's just one passage and one question at a time. So let's take it from the next passage. The first known dentures. Go ahead and read that for us, please, loud and proud.
Well, first known dentures born as early as 17 BCE or 700 BCE by the Etruscans.
Etruscans. Yep.
Etruscans of central Italy were composed mainly of animal teeth held together by gold bands.
Okay, I'm going to stop you real quick. You know what dentures are?
Yeah, it's the basically fake teeth.
Fake teeth. Absolutely, fake teeth. Yeah, you don't have to know exactly what 700 BCE means here. Don't worry about it. It means BCE is a fancy way of saying before Christ or BC. So that's a long time ago. It's like 2,700 years ago. You don't need to know it. Just a long time ago. Okay, 700 BC is a long time ago. By the Etruscans of central Italy. Another good example, too, of like when you see like a proper noun like that, like you don't have, there's some people living in central Italy a long time ago. That's good enough. You know what I'm saying? So don't get too stuck on proper names. Kind of like in that first passage with the cities in India. Like you don't have to know exactly where they are or even how to pronounce them. Lord knows I don't. That's okay. You don't have to worry about it. Okay, so they were composed mainly of animal teeth held together by gold bands. Gross. Okay, let's keep reading.
Later in the 16th century, a denture made of wooden teeth held in place by sections became popular in Japan.
Okay.
A natural look emerged with the dentures of the 18th and 19th centuries, which feature teeth made of ivory or porcelain and
porcelain.
Porcelain and mounted on plates of gold or vulcanite, a type of rubber.
Okay, good. I'm glad they tell us what vulcanite is because I didn't know exactly what that was until I read this passage. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty straightforward. Okay. Good. A porcelain's like a fancy type of ceramic. You know, like you might have dishes made out of porcelain, like fine china made out of porcelain or something like that. But again, you don't need to know that here. Let's keep reading.
While some modern dentures still feature porcelain teeth, most dentures today contain teeth made from plastic and mounted on a metal base.
Okay. Any questions about this?
No.
What's the main point of this passage?
It's basically, really, it's just showing the history of dentures, really.
Yeah, it's the history of dentures, man. That's it. All right, great. All right, let's read question number 7. We'll answer it together.
The author uses the term natural to indicate that the dentures of the 18th and 19th centuries.
Okay, now hold on. I'm going to stop you real quick. Notice the question doesn't say, what does natural mean? Because we know what natural means, right? Mm-hmm. It's real specific. It says the author uses the term natural to indicate that the dentures made in the 18th and 19th centuries there's something about them. Okay, let's go back to, I want to read that sentence again. Read that sentence with the word natural in it. It's kind of in the middle of the passage.
Yeah. A natural look emerged with the dentures of the 18th and 19th centuries, which featured teeth made of ivory or porcelain and mounted on the plates of gold of vulcanite, a type of rubber.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you, before we even look at the answer choice, I'm going to ask you this question. Why do you think the author uses the term natural What is he trying to indicate about those dentures from the 18th and 19th centuries when he uses the term natural? What does that mean?
That they look normal.
Yeah, they look normal, like normal teeth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's interesting too, right? Because we can see there's some contrast from the previous sentence where it talks about like teeth made of wood, right? A denture is made of wooden teeth in Japan earlier, right? And then later a natural look emerged. I agree, right? You can kind of figure that out just reading the sentence and reading the passage. All right, so let's do 7 again. The author used the term natural to indicate the dentures made of the 18th and 19th centuries. Go ahead and read answer choice A.
Resembled real human teeth.
Okay, what do you think about that? Do you think the author uses the term natural to indicate that dentures of the 18th and 19th centuries resembled human teeth?
I'd say that's a maybe right there.
Okay. Let's keep it, right? I mean, that's when when I asked you the question, you said normal. They looked normal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean they resembled human teeth? Maybe. Look, let's keep it. Okay, let's go to the others. Go and read answer choice B.
Included some real human teeth.
Okay, does the author use the term natural to indicate that the dentures of the 18th and 19th centuries included some real human teeth?
No.
I mean, if you said yes, I'd be like, okay, what's your evidence for that? Or does it say they used real human teeth? Now, this might be a little bit tempting if you kind of just read the passage and you're like, oh, I remember them talking about real human teeth. Got to be B. But why is that wrong?
Because in this sense it says like the teeth was made from ivory or like gold. It doesn't say that they're using real human teeth.
Exactly, right? It doesn't say. Oh yeah, they use animal teeth is what the Etruscans used. Yeah, no. In fact, nowhere does this. In fact, I thought they mentioned it. Nowhere does it say they use real human teeth. They use real animal teeth in Italy, like in 700 BCE. But it doesn't say anywhere that they use real human teeth. So definitely not. Easy to get rid of, by the way. Right? Notice the difference. When you read A, you're like, maybe it's possible. I don't know. But when you read B, you're like, no, not happening. They're not using real human teeth. Go ahead and read answer choice C, please.
Contained animal teeth rather than artificial substances.
Do you think the author used the term natural to indicate the dentures made in the 18th and 19th centuries contained animal teeth rather than artificial substances?
No.
That's what I was thinking of, right, where they mentioned animal teeth previously, right? So it could be tempting, but that's not where they're talking about the Etruscans a longer time ago, 700 BCE, and not when people were making dentures in the 18th and 19th centuries. So, no, we can get rid of C. Go ahead and read answer choice D for me.
Were made of materials found in nature.
Ooh, do you think the author uses the term natural to indicate that the dentures of the 18th and 19th centuries were made of materials found in nature?
Well, the sentence says the teeth were made from, materials found in nature, but it says a natural look emerged. Yes, it's a natural look. Not that they're using natural materials, although they may be. I mean, ivory is a natural material. Although porcelain, if you know anything about porcelain, again, it's like that's a fine ceramic. That's definitely man-made. Porcelain does not occur in nature. Mm-hmm.
No, neither does vulcanite. I don't know if vulcanite does or not, but maybe, I don't know. But they're talking about the way it looks, right? I love that you point that out. A natural look emerged.
Yeah, and look at A. It says resemble real human teeth.
Go.
And resemble, that means it looks like
how
real
it
human
looks.
teeth.
Exactly. Now, D is really tempting here. It's going to be tempting for a lot of students. I guarantee a lot. It's probably the most common incorrect answer choice. Because you just see that word natural, like natural, nature, bingo, nailed it. You know what I'm saying? So many kids are going to do that. So many people. We got grown-ups taking this test too. So many people are going to pick answer choice D. But if you understand the passage and you understand the question, A makes a lot more sense. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But once again, how easy is it to get rid of B and C if you're thinking clearly? Really easy.
Sure.
So focus on elimination. You're going to have that experience a lot when you read a correct answer choice. You'll be like, I don't know, maybe. Keep it. But we can find evidence against B. We can find evidence against C. We can find evidence against D.
Yeah.
And we don't need to bring in our opinion. It's about what the author is saying still. and will always be on this test. Any questions?
Cool.
Okay. Let's keep going.
All right.
Next passage.
American copyright laws, law that prohibit the use, distribution, or adaptation of others' product without permission, first applied only to the copying of books, but now covers such diverse products as sound recordings, motion pictures, and computer programs. The Federal Copyright Act of 1790 allowed copyright protection for 14 years, with one 14-year extension allowed. If the author survived the first 14-year term, the Copyright Act of 1909 extended copyright protection to 28 years, with 28-year renewal, and the Copyright Act of 1976 extended it further to 75 years.
Okay, let me stop you real quick. Let's do the same thing. What's the main point of this passage?
Yeah, it's really like showing the history of copyright, really.
Yeah. And what's the history? What is it?
That, well, first it was only, like, before, like, when it came to, like, music or movies or anything, it was first only for when it came to books.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and then later on it came on to movies and shows and all other stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then they changed the number of years and stuff like that copyright laws applied. First 14 years and 28 years and now 75 years. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, now, you know, just think in terms of the main point, not just the topic, because the topic's clearly, you know, copyright laws, right? And you're right. I mean, it is about the history of copyright laws. You're absolutely right. But think about, okay, well, what is it? What's the point about the history of copyright laws? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and look at question number 8. Look at question number 8. Okay. Notice it doesn't say what's the main point, but go ahead and read it still. It's on the same similar track.
To explain the
we'll go and read the question.
What is the main purpose of this passage?
Okay, I want to talk about what that means here. It's not asking what's the main point, but it's similar to that, right? So what's the main purpose of the passage? So that means, like, why is the author writing it? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Could you tell me, in your own words, don't even worry about the answer choice right now, just tell me in your own words, why do you think the author is writing this passage? What's his purpose?
I think it's really to show how copyrights change over the years,
Sure.
really.
Sure. Yeah, to describe the history of copyright laws, to show it's changed over the years. Great. Let's look at the answer choices. Go to me, answer choice A.
To explain the need for copyright laws.
Okay. Is the main purpose of the passage to explain the need for copyright laws?
No.
No, it is not. No. Like, where's it talking about the need for copyright laws, right? I mean, like, just doesn't do it. Doesn't talk about why it's needed. Read answer choice B.
Yeah, it explains what it is, but not why it's needed.
Why? Exactly, right? Go and read answer choice B.
To show how copyright laws have been applied.
Okay. Is the main purpose of the passage to show how copyright laws have been applied?
Let's see.
You're going back, aren't you? I love it. Let's see. You're thinking in the right terms. Let's see if it does that.
What does show how they've applied?
That's a great question, right? What does it mean to apply a law? What does it mean? How a law is applied?
To add it? Or?
To apply something. How is applied?
What's the word? Like, to request for it? Like, is that?
No, you're thinking about, like, to an application for, like, you know, a job or university or something like that, right? Just means how it's used. How it's used. To apply something, right? To, like, as in to apply your knowledge, right? There's one thing to know something, right? But another thing is to apply that knowledge. It's to do something with it. So, does this passage, is the main purpose to show how copyright laws have been applied, or what has been done with copyright laws?
I think that's a maybe.
That's a maybe. Let's keep it. What's your evidence for that, by the way?
Well, it says the Federal Copyright Act shows copyright protection for 14 years with one line. If the author survives, protection to 28 years. Copyright Act. Well, it's like, but now covered with such as products as sound recordings, motion pictures, computer programs, And yeah.
Yeah, so they're talking about the different things that the copyright law covers and the term, the years that it applies. Let's keep it. Let's keep it. Keep your maybes, man. Always keep them. Okay. Go ahead and read answer choice C.
To indicate how copyright laws have changed.
Is the main purpose of the passage to indicate how copyright laws have changed. Let's talk about that word indicate. You know what indicate means?
Like to show?
To show. Mm-hmm. To show. So is the main purpose of the passage to show how copyright laws have changed?
I'm going to be honest with you. That's also another maybe.
Yeah. I would keep it. What's your evidence?
Because it's showing how it's been throughout the years.
Yeah.
And they're saying how it was at first, and then they're saying basically how it is now.
Here's another question for you. What is there more evidence for? Answer choice B or answer choice C?
It looks like, from what I'm seeing,
go through gut instinct here. Gut instinct.
From what I'm seeing, it looks like answer choice C, actually.
Yeah, answer choice C is, I think is better.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's better. And I think it really hinges on the definition of that term applied. Right? You have to really know what that means. Now, if they gave us cases where copyright laws have been put into effect, or some people have been sued by, for copyright infringement or something like that, and how the law was applied in a particular case or in particular cases, we could go with B. But it's not really showing how it applied in the real world. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I don't think there's no question that the passage indicates how copyright laws have changed. Right? I mean, every sentence is about how it's changed. It used to be just books, and now it's all this stuff. Right? It used to be 14 years, and then it was 28 years, then it's 75 years.
Mm.
Right? Every sentence is indicating how it's changed. I think there's more for C. And B is a maybe. I like C more. Let's read answer choice D.
To argue that copyright laws need to be expanded.
Is the main purpose of the passage to argue that copyright laws need to be expanded?
No.
Oh gosh, no. No. Where's the evidence for that, right? I mean, if it said we need more copyright laws, more things need to be copyright. Okay, maybe. But it's just not doing that. You'll see this all the time where two of the answer choices, if you're thinking clearly and you understand the passage and you understand the questions, two of the answer choices are kind of silly. A and D are silly. B is reasonable, man. When I did this the first time, I was like, ooh, can't get rid of it. Maybe. But then always ask yourself that question. Okay, what's there more evidence for? If you can narrow it down to two, what's there more evidence for? And I don't think there's any question there's more evidence for C than there is for B. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's answer choice C. I just checked the answer key just to make sure for this one. This one I had to check, right? This is the first one that I've had to.
Mm.
The others I'm not even worried about. We know. Here I double checked.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions?
No.
Let's keep rolling.
So, this one. If you're committed to healthy, green living and want to reduce your environmental footprint, you might consider expanding your daily diet to include bugs.
Okay, first of all, gross. Second of all, we see that word green again.
Yeah.
Right? Now, this is interesting. 'Cause I make this argument all the time with students. If you see a word you don't know that just doesn't make sense in some anything you're reading, right? I always say, still, look it up. That's how you boost your academic vocabulary. You've got to do it, okay? That still holds true, right? So do that now. Do that after you take the TSI. I'm telling you, if you're spending any time in school, the rest of your life, just make it a habit. It's going to pay off big time, okay? But the funny thing about doing it, when you start looking up words that you don't know, you're going to start seeing that word again and again and again and again. And so we already see that word green that you're kind of iffy about early. We already see that in the next, just a couple passages later. So, so anyway, keep looking. I just want to encourage anybody, that is on the fence about looking up words you don't know. In general, again, you can't do that in the TSI. I want to make that really, really clear. But in general, do that, and you're going to see that word that you had to look up, that you found the definition for. You're going to see it all the time now. Before you ignored it because you didn't know what it meant, but now that you know what it means, you're going to see it all the time. All right. If you're committed to a healthy green living and want to reduce your environmental footprint, you might want to consider expanding your daily diet to include bugs. Okay. All right, don't do that. But anyway, go ahead and keep reading, please.
All right. Supporters of the Edible Insect Initiative regularly argue that farming insects has a much lower environmental impact than does raising livestock, since bugs are easier to harvest and require a fraction of the water and land space that cattle need.
Okay. Does that all make sense, by the way? Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what livestock is?
Yeah, basically like cows and
Yeah. Cows and sheep and goats and horses. Although I don't recommend eating horses either. But I know it's done. But okay, I'm not going to delve into that. But anyway, go ahead, just keep reading.
Indeed, the high protein, low fat health benefits of bug eating have long been known for hundreds. Have long been known. Okay. For hundreds of years, crickets, silkworms, and even tarantulas have been served roasted, stewed, and fried at the dinner tables of many cultures.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. All right. I know I was knocking eating bugs earlier. I have to admit, though, I love seafood. Like, I love crab and lobster, which are basically big bugs, or like crawfish. I have to admit that. But anyway. All right. So no offense to any bug eaters watching this recording, but all right. Let's talk about the main point of this passage. What is the main point of this passage here, Francisco?
Basically, that you should start eating bugs more.
You should start eating bugs. Yes, for all these reasons. Woo! All right. I agree completely. All right, great. Go ahead and read the question now.
All right. In the first sentence, expanding most nearly means...
This is easy, man. This is easy. This is a vocab question. Now, we did one of these on the first passage, right, on the Indian bookstore, the girls visiting the Indian bookstore. We did one of these vocab questions. I don't know if you remember the method, right? Do you remember what we did?
Basically, replacing the word for...
Yeah. Just plug it in the sentence and read the sentence with the answer choices in place of expanding, right? Because notice the question, Francisco, the question isn't, what does expanding mean? Everybody knows what expanding means, right?
Mm-hmm.
Come on. But the question says, in the first sentence, expanding most nearly means something. So let's plug in the answer choices, and I'll bet the right answer choice is going to jump out and hit you in the face. Let's read them.
All right. Your environmental footprint. You might consider.
We're going to read the whole sentence. Read the whole sentence. We got time. This is an untimed test.
All right. You might consider expanding
No. The whole. It says in the first sentence. So we'll take if you are committed.
In the first sentence, expanding most nearly means, and then intensifying.
If you are committed, go ahead and read that first sentence. Yep.
Oh, okay. If you are committed to healthy green living and want to reduce your environmental footprint, you might consider expanding your daily diet to include bugs.
Yeah, but we need to plug in answer choice A in place of expanding.
All right. Okay. If you are committed to healthy green living and want to reduce your environmental footprint, you might consider intensifying your daily diet to include bugs.
How's that?
Not a little.
That's not a good sign, right? If you're like, yeah. It's not great. It's not great. Do you want to get rid of it, or do you want to keep it as a maybe?
Well, I don't really like it.
So I don't like it. Hey, look, if you're reading, you're like, that's not a good sign. Get rid of it. Hey, look, if we get rid of all four, maybe we can come back and reconsider it. But if you're reading, you're like, that's probably not right. Go ahead and plug in answer choice B.
If you are committed to healthy green living and want to reduce your environmental footprint, you might consider broadening your daily diet to include bugs.
How's that?
I'm going to be honest, I don't even know what broadening means.
Okay. Now, this is tricky. Because if you don't know what it means, I'm not inclined to get rid of it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not inclined to get rid of it. Let's keep it. Go ahead and read answer choice C.
If you're committed to healthy green living and want to reduce your environmental footprint, you might consider developing your daily diet to include bugs.
How's that?
I like that one.
Okay. Let's try answer choice D.
If you are committed to healthy green living and want to reduce your environmental footprint, you might consider exaggerating your daily diet to include bugs.
How's that?
No,
definitely not. You're not exaggerating your diet. You don't exaggerate your diet. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So it's either B or C. What are you going to go with here?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with C.
Okay. So it's not C. Here's the deal. By the way, if you didn't like C, go with the one you don't know. You know what I'm saying? Go with the one you don't know. But you like C. So go with what you think sounds good. Generally, it's going to be pretty clear. Okay? Now, this is interesting here. It says, you might want to consider developing your daily diet to include bugs. You might want to consider developing your daily diet to include bugs. So the sentence suggesting you are developing your daily diet. How would you develop your daily diet? Is that a thing? Do you develop your diet?
Yeah, okay, no.
Right? You don't really develop your diet. You know what I'm saying? I mean, maybe like if you're developing some new like fad Atkins diet or something, like I'm developing a new dieting system. You can develop a dieting system, but you don't really develop your diet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I wouldn't use that word there. Now, broadening. What word do you see in broadening?
Broad.
Yeah, broad. Which means what? Be careful here. What does broad mean?
Yeah, I've heard the word before, but
if you have broad feet, what does that mean? Broad shoulders there. If you have broad shoulders, have you heard that term? That broad shoulders just means wide.
Wide. Okay.
Broad, right? Broad means wide. So to broaden something means to widen it. Widen.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you just have to know what vocab means sometimes. You know what I'm saying? You just have to. And that's why I strongly encourage anybody watching this recording, look up words you don't know. You're going to be reading academic texts as long as you're in school and beyond. And you might as well know what words mean. So it's tough if you don't know what it means. It's tough. But do you see why developing just doesn't quite make sense there? Because you don't really develop your diet.
Right.
You definitely don't exaggerate your diet. Could you intensify your diet? Maybe. But that sounds terrible in there. Really sounds terrible.
Yeah.
So, anyway, it is answer choice. Any questions about that?
No.
Okay. Look up vocab. All right. Let's do the next passage. Go to read it for me, please.
All right. The 1922 German expressionist film Nosferatu, directed by F.W. Moreno, is considered one of the most influential films in cinematic history, while also being a classic vampire movie. The film is closely based on Bram Stoker's 1897 novel Dracula. However, the villain in the film is called Count Orlok rather than Count Dracula. The reason is that the small studio that produced the film, Brenna Film, was unable to secure the rights to Stoker's novel. In fact, shortly after finishing Nosferatu, its one and only film, Brenna went bankrupt in order to dodge copyright lawsuits from Stoker's widow.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. What is the main point there of that passage, Francisco?
Basically, the guy named Brenna made a vampire movie, but he because of copyright, he tried to avoid it as possible, and then apparently he lost all his money just to duck the lawsuits and everything.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the main point?
The main point, really.
I mean, you summarized it pretty well.
I think really it's just like the history, or not history. Well, yeah, kind of like Nosferatu.
Yeah, it's kind of just describe. Yeah, maybe you could say the purpose is
or
describing.
Like the aftermath, I guess.
Yeah. Just kind of describing the history of of the movie and the aftermath. You're right, and the lawsuits that happened after. Yeah, sure. I mean, honestly, your first description was good. It was good. It's not. Yeah, yeah. And I don't think we need to know that here for this question because it looks like another vocab question. I think it is. Go and read question number
10. In context, secure in sentence 3 most nearly means...
It's another vocab question, right? It's saying in context, right? It's just like the other vocab questions too. It's saying like in the first sentence, this most nearly means here. In the context of the passage, secure most nearly means, right? Which once again does not say what does secure mean? That's not it.
I think protect, right?
I mean, if that was the question, right? To secure means to protect, right? But here it says in the context, sentence 3. Secure most nearly means what? So we got to do the same thing. We got to plug in the answer choices. Let's do it again. Do you see where sentence 3 is at?
Yeah.
All right.
So you want me to read it?
Yeah, read sentence 3. It starts with the reason is that the small studio, and then plug in the answer choices in place of the word secure. So we'll start with shelter.
The reason is that the small studio that produced the film, Prana Film, was unable to shelter the rights to Stroker's novel.
How's that? Right. And once again, like that's your reaction. How do you shelter the rights to a novel? I don't know. That's weird.
Like you get the novel home?
Yeah, right. Yeah. You can live here, novel. I don't think so. Go and read answer choice B. Plug that in.
The reason is that the small studio that produced the film, Prana Film, was unable to fasten the rights to Stoker's novel.
How's that?
No. Doesn't really make sense to me.
I don't even give it a it's a no. There's 0 sense. Trans choice C.
The reason is that the small studio that produced the film, Prana Film, was unable to obtain the rights to Stoker's novel.
How's that?
That's a maybe, honestly.
Let's keep it. Let's try D.
The reason is that the small studio that produced the film, Prana Film, was unable to guarantee the rights to Stoker's novel.
Ooh. How's that?
Was unable to guarantee. I think, if I was to go to my gut here, I think the way I see it is like
always go with your gut, man. Always go with your gut. What's
I see it as like it's saying like was unable to get the right.
Novel. What's the right answer?
C.
Bingo. D is tempting. We're not talking about Prana Film guaranteeing the rights to the novel. That doesn't make sense. Not exactly. It doesn't. They're trying to get the rights. You're right. They're trying to get the rights. And that's obtained. So answer choice D is gone there. But I love the fact that you said, well, if I'm going with my gut. That's what you go with here on this test. Your gut knows things your brain doesn't know. And if you read the question enough, plug in guarantee, you might be able to convince yourself somehow that guarantees the right answer. But don't do that. Go with your gut. Listen to your reactions. You've heard this phrasing before. I promise you. Somewhere you've heard in some news story that some talking about like someone trying to obtain the rights to a movie or obtain the rights to a book or something like that. You've heard that phrasing before. Somewhere. It's deep into your subconscious somewhere. Listen to that. Your gut knows. Your brain may not, but your gut knows. And your gut also knows guarantee is weird. And there's a reason why. Because the Prana Film, the film studio, wasn't guaranteeing the rights to the novel. That doesn't make sense. They don't have the rights. Right. In fact, they couldn't get the rights. That's why they're trying to obtain the rights, or they tried to. They certainly can't guarantee it. Don't make sense. Great job going with your gut there. I love it, Francisco. I love it. Let's do this. For those of you watching the recording, I'm going to assign the rest of these, the next 5 questions here for homework. We'll go over those in another day of the course. We'll do day 2. I've actually decided to extend the reading to 2 days. So we'll take care of that later. But do those for homework. We'll go over those at the beginning of the next session. Francisco, you have any questions for me?
No.
Okay, awesome. Great work today. Great work. I feel like you're getting a handle on this. All right. Thanks so much, guys, for watching. And do the homework, and I'll see you on day 2.